So you have no choice. I always do some of the poets who were born in the month of April, and this time will be no different. So this is not my favorite translation, but on April 9th, 1821, Charles Baudelaire was born in Paris, France. And this is the James McGowan translation of the entire Le Fleur du Mal. We have Mesta et Erabunda, which is basically translated as sorrowful and wandering. Agatha, tell me, could your heart take flight from this black city, from this filthy sea, off to some other sea where splendor might burst blue and clear, a new virginity? Agatha, tell me, could your heart take flight? The vast sea offers comfort in our pain. What demon lets the ocean's raucous cry above the great wind organ's grumbling strain perform the holy rite of lullaby? The vast sea offers comfort in our pain. Frigate or wagon, carry me away, away from where the mud is made of tears. Agatha, can your sad heart sometimes say, far from the crimes, remorse, the grief of years, frigate or wagon, carry me away. How distant you are, perfumed paradise, where lovers play beneath the blue above, where hearts may drown themselves in pure delights, where what one loves is worthy to be loved. How distant are you, perfumed paradise. But the green paradise of youthful loves, the games and songs, the kisses, the bouquets, the violins that sing in hilly groves, the evening cups of wine in shady ways, but the green paradise of youthful loves, the sinless paradise of stolen joys, is it already far beyond the seas? Can we recall it with our plaintive voice and give it life with silver melodies, the sinless paradise of stolen joys? Charles Baudelaire. All right. On the 5th of April, Algernon Charles Swinburne was born in England in 1837, and his death day is April 10th, 1909. Don't worry, I won't read the one about necrophilia. This is Love and Sleep by Swinburne. Lying asleep between the strokes of night, I saw my love lean over my sad bed, pale as the duskiest lily's leaf or head, smooth-skinned and dark, with bare throat made to bite, too wan for blushing and too warm for white, but perfect-colored without white or red. And her lips opened amorously and said, I wist not what, saving one word, delight. And all her face was honey to my mouth, and all her body pasture to mine eyes, the long lithe arms and hotter hands than fire, the quivering flanks, hair smelling of the south, the bright light feet, the splendid supple thighs, and glittering eyelids of my soul's desire. Swinburne. Okay. On the 13th of April, the great Seamus Heaney, born in Mossbawn, Northern Ireland. This poem is from 1975. This is one of my favorite poems of his. Act of Union. 1. Tonight, a first movement, a pulse, as if the rain in bogland gathered head to slip and flood, a bog burst, a gash breaking open the ferny bed. Your back is a firm line of eastern coast, and arms and legs are thrown beyond your gradual hills. I caress the heaving province where our past has grown. I am the tall kingdom over your shoulder that you would neither cajole nor ignore. Conquest is a lie. I grow older, conceding your half-independent shore, within whose borders now my legacy culminates inexorably. 2. And I am still imperially male, leaving you with the pain, the rending process in the colony, the battering ram, the boom burst from within. The act sprouted an obstinate fifth column whose stance is growing unilateral. His heart beneath your heart is a war drum mustering force. His parasitical and ignorant little fists already beat at your borders, and I know they are cocked at me across the water. No treaty I foresee will solve completely your tracked and stretch-marked body, the big pain that leaves you raw like opened ground again. Seamus Heaney. And one more, I could read just birthday poets. Seamus is James.
James.
We have the great Swedish poet Thomas Tranströmer, born on the 15th of April in 1931 in Stockholm. This is a Robert Bly translation. This is one of my favorite of his shorter poems, Tranströmer. April and Silence. Spring lies abandoned. A ditch the color of dark violet moves alongside me, giving no images back. The only thing that shines are some yellow flowers. I am carried inside my own shadow like a violin in its black case. The only thing I want to say hovers just out of reach, like the family silver at the pawnbrokers. And Stromer. He died about 2 years ago, I think. Maybe 3 years ago. All right. And some of my work. I have a dedication for my offering this evening. I've been following this particular case, and it's another issue of living or dying. On the 23rd, which is Monday, little Alfie Evans from England will be taken off his ventilator. He was born May 9th, 2016, so not even 2 years. The UK Supreme Court wants to take him off the ventilator. There's been a war going on with his parents, and his father went to see the Pope and had an audience with the Pope. This is the Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool, and it looks like the little baby is going to be killed. So my reading is dedicated to him. All right, my first poem. And the cold days of winter are behind us now, and the springtime promises all come true. That's Springtime Promises from the great British ensemble Pentangle. Spring's divine duty. The fist of a fir was first to strike the roof in a recent snowstorm. Late winter languished, yet rose up in rage when vernal language took the stage. Last of the king's tempests, pretender to the throne, which was will to Ostara's offspring. Brave winds are used by ice-codger winter to retain his kingdom of cold. The reign of spring begins as a shy maiden. She gains confidence, schooling and plans from sun professor and rain preceptor. Spring is aware of her green self. Pulse anticipates stronger measures of sun, as he beckons her to rise through old snow and ice from a shroud fitted in haste, by November, fulfilling his contract with the north wind. She awaited equinox, her reward, fog children, droplets of dew, upon the fair necks of damsel daffodils, tenured tulips, who paint each morning as offspring of starlight. All is keen at dawn, green verses, troubadour sparrows affix new measures of love to budding shrubs and towering trees, once held fast to obdurate ice and snow obituaries. Woodpecker taps a morning metronome, chamber notes for a newly inspired countryside, and fern fiddleheads sway in liturgical sunlight. And this next one takes place in the parking lot of the Goshen Methodist Church, after a reading a few years back. Crow's Gothic testimony. Heavy, dusty Gothic winds. Pitch-painted crow eats of trash can with brute stenciled upon gray under slate-buried sky. Evening in Methodist Church parking lot. He rips the black flesh of the kitchen trash bag. No parking anytime signpost. A television in a pile of spring cleanup remnants. He calls out to unseen watchers. No reply, but a brisk wave of wind. He speaks from sunset-stained limbs of awakening silver maple. I'm glad to know that some of you are for the birds. I have been my entire life. This is about our New York State piper, the bluebird. 1. The azure. An eastern bluebird cast himself under the bridge over a sullen farm creek. May shed rain unto the aroused acreage, bubbles born of the enigma of rain puddles, silver reveries above a brown bed of ephemeral lacrimae. Green rose boldly assuaging old winter doubt. 2. The avian laureate. His song is worth no more than barn swallows, yet his coat of arms was painted in an elixir of cerulean spring. New York's principal troubadour. Who but the tanager or goldfinch could rival? Bluebird has a trail, is a tenant in a small wooden house, many constructed by vigilant humans whose numbers, like bluebirds, are in decline.
Certainly.
All right, some from Dickens' pet raven, and he really did have a pet raven, and it was called Grip. Think of Barnaby Rudge. All right. Think of Poe, I hope. This is, well, I listen to a lot of classical music, so this has something to do with that. Rain in late April. The bearded young man, robed and robbed in poverty, paces the puddled driveway under a foreboding gray sky. I am garret-bound, dry, while he is soaked from early spring-chilled mud. I am listening to Mendelssohn's Second Quartet as wind drives rain into his face, but it does not mean that I have not walked that gray driveway, wandered country roads, hungry and cold, or will in the future. Poetry is my poverty. Poverty is my mistress. His young loins will find a wife's warmth and support his legacy of labor by offering him the wealth of offspring. Poverty is my poetry. Poetry is my mistress. My mind knows a poem's warmth, which supports my legacy of labor by offering me the wealth of offspring. I have books and music and memory-chilled rain. Thank you. Maestro Mendelssohn, thanks for doing. All right. Wait a minute. Here we are. Barrows full of bones and memory. I do not choose to walk with invisible blinders on my obvious albatross. The dross of common days weighs like barrows full of bones and memory. The daily tasks descend as icicles on a haunted porch. Gloaming breathes anxious shadows. Vampires expected to materialize from mist-hung fields, floating beyond grand draperied windows of a manor's ground-floor bedchamber. I do not choose to balk at expectations unrealized after years of struggle with triumph, a puzzle incomplete, laying at one's feet mere inches from the end of an antique tether. I long to gamble in meadows of heather and interview daffodils after a haunting spring rain. Blame is a merciless mistress, self-immolating in dust-dressed halls, but the window rattles, and warming breezes shake the husks of dream debris, last year's harvest remnants, where buds bide time with greening leaves, and emerge whether winds instruct snowflakes or beckon fronds to face the sun. A barrow need not be a heap of book bones left to rot on shelves of amnesia. The cart can be filled with mulch and moisture instead of left overturned in a dried, vacant pasture. Thank you. All right, this next one takes place in Goshen, New York, right downtown. At Sunflower Cafe, Goshen, New York, 2015. I sat at a table near the window where poets once read, when an ancient brick edifice was a bookstore, which bore a French cafe. Now with yellow August sunflowers, I brooded over a decade, much to be forgotten. Her tresses dusk-woven, with late summer's great paintbrush, fair visage gently kissed by Kronos, the singer of poems entered, and time stopped. She did not bring a lute, yet her satchel's mystery surely held books. Her voice reached my soul over a decade ago, burden of eternity with a secret I believe I have understood since lives past. Nurtured memory of a maid near haunted waterfalls in spring, many quiet winters later, and her eyes still tell secrets of wisdom the soul brings. She remains nameless. All right, again, back to the early music. This is about the great John Dowland. And there was a sonnet by the English poet Richard Barnfield, published in 1598, about John Dowland and his luthier abilities, his lute playing and his compositions. Dowland to thee is clear, whose heavenly touch upon the lute doth ravish human sense. Richard Barnfield. This is Dowland at Dawn. 1. Some are rising for work. Some are rising for war. Others are risking bird song and immortal sunrise. 2. Can she excuse my wrongs with virtue's cloak? John Dowland. I hear Dowland at dawn, the old lutenist alive. Milkmaids and farmers' lads cover dalliance of a decadent night. A stray hair falls from a bonnet and reduces her story to woe. His woolen trousers shined in fresh dew, dried sweat and proof of union, lost to new stains and riot of scents in early morning. Distant melody, who plays such tunes as the inky blanket is dyed by warmer hands? Even the sweetest strains cannot but distract beast and bird, but for a meddling mask, seraphic saraband, how for such tunings to rouse the ire of crows in oak boughs and barn eaves, hidden until night's last messenger transports a new missive to Aurora. 3. All the earth, all the air of love and pleasure speaks. John Dowland. The clover is cold on her bare feet. She does not know the music's source. The force of her tale remains abed. Her tuning has changed. A rooster chides. Paws, hooves, claws abide. Her breath is the holy poetry of spring. Clouds part for the sun, as did her piety the previous evening. You'll chuckle, but a lot of Dowland's lyrics are very bawdy, as you know. Yeah. Quite saucy. All right, and not to depart much from the bawd and the sauciness, Algernon Swinburne got in a hell of a lot of trouble at Balliol when he was at Oxford. He caused a lot of problems for the Dons and his friends and enemies alike. And this is Swinburne at Oxford, Balliol, 1856 to 1860. He was also matriculated in darkness. They heard the screaming that autumn evening. The damp night told more than impending winter. The drunken son of Proserpine was at his witching hour recitation. Some sat up late by the fire, reading Milton or Shakespeare, meditating on the 100 Years' War, or which of Henry's wives were prettiest. The odd one, his verses were musical, laureate of the libido, wild red locks disappearing into a new fog, rising from the night-wet meadow. Some heard the rumors of his game, disgracing the family name with harlots from London, opium intrigue in empty flats, a skull wrapped in an old grey cape, naked in the courtyard, sliding down a banister in the grand hall. Yet there was no doubt as to the genus of his genius, son of the great northern sea, long before Rossetti pinned the paper to his worsted lapel for Swinburne in a swoon to find his way home. True story. It's true. He would drink every day, probably all day, and Rossetti literally had his address and name on the front coat. He pinned it on, after their...
Wasn't that true of Poe, too?
No. No, sir. Not Poe. Poe was a gentleman.
Poe was a gentleman.
Well, they all were supposed to be. All right, this really took place near, on Pine Hill Road in Chester, New York. I was heading over to the Milkweed Art Gallery for a reading, and I had to stop because of this. The Coyote at Glenmere, Pine Hill Road, Chester, New York, Wednesday, March 22nd, 2017. No hunter for the apex predator, but trucks, cars, and winter. He wandered along the border of spring, near the back entrance to Glenmere Estate's wooded hill above the lake. I slowed on Pine Hill Road, called from the car, sounded its horn, and Coyote froze in his tracks. A late snow scrap. Evening was beckoning in a voice I could not hear and would not recognize. The mate and pups waited in their den. Screech owl warned of freezing rain. Did he pause to admire pagan statues and columns on the frozen grounds of the mansion? Ancient wisdom walked coiffed acres, noble but no tweed wolf. He held the night, feral lord of the manor, where brides and grooms would never believe his primordial inheritance during their tame fates and courtship at his courtyard in summer's dusk. En route to a gallery where nude portraits hung on a wall, I knew Coyote's art was cyclic but sudden, primal, holy passion of rut, of nursing, of the remnants of prey in his stone chapel, hidden from the heresy of humans. All right. Scallions. A warm breath in middle March, and we stand listening to the return of red-winged blackbird, our green bodies lithe and aromatic, earlier than daffodils, yet who would paint us through a trembling love poem, asking the sky to hold weeds delicately as a perfect tulip, gather us to present to a maiden dreams of scallions on a chilled and foggy afternoon? Spring peepers call as a sparrow sways on an old cattail. They know who we are. We are spring's lions, calling through winter-damp brown leaves, conjuring the crocus, asking gray clouds to bless shy daffodils and guard us from senseless scythes, mowers crazed with seasonal fevers. Thank you. Too many people out trying to mow their lawns already just to get the scallions. I spent a lot of time hiking in Black Rock Forest in Cornwall since 1983, and I go every season. This is one of my many poems about Black Rock Forest. In Black Rock Forest, she wandered in her green dress and lichen socks, carried her backpack of bark up the dry dirt road. A private school behind her, Hudson Valley Forest ahead. In the woodland, we passed up a reservoir, Alec Meadow, dry creek cribs, and early paints of an autumn forest. Ghost dissertation, Gothic tracts, her blue eyes green, calling past lives the ancient oak sentry on White Oak Road. We sat at a quiet fire hearth aside the hulking Babcock house, heavy green metal doors secured against the curious as new smoke passed through her. Cool gray stones inviting her small hands to read the braille of ghost history. She spoke of living in the settler's abode. Her breath was pine needles. When she looked away, she vanished. We glanced at the well by the road, surrounded only by swamp-red maples, first September blush, Arthur's Lake in the distance. I drew water from the green well pump. Thick moss at my feet whispered. I sounded the tree trunk drum, a trek up to Tamarack Pond. Ferns, blackberries, and wineberries along the road, a barricade against time. She who understands why I seek ghosts in the Hudson Valley stood near me again after centuries. And we'll stick around the river for another short poem. Last April 1st, 2017, I went with my brother Matthew. He thought this was a great idea. He said, I have tickets to Eisenhower Hall for a Scottish tattoo. And 3 hours of Highland pipes and drums. I couldn't hear for 2 days after that. Literally, it was 3 hours. There were dancers, there were pipers. And during the Great War, World War I, German soldiers often called the Highland marchers the ladies from hell. So that's that reference.
Wish they were here as they were approaching battle and death. frightening.
That's right. Pipers at the Point, Scottish Tattoo, Eisenhower Hall, United States Military Academy, West Point, New York, April 1st, 2017. This is dedicated to my brother Matthew, and this has been framed, and it is sitting in the Cadet Library at West Point because they asked for it when I read there in the library last May. Old West Point, ghosts enter above the older Hudson, spring night, Highland pipes and drums resound through the river valley. Early April's grey damp chill reminded the master of ceremonies of his revered homeland. The drum major's staff and regalia, ancient tartan and headdress, fair dancers, mere maids in rustic folk ballet, from Scottish Highlands to New York Highlands, and the drone of the bagpipes, Celtic trill of the ladies from hell in a peacetime posture over 100 years later. The fiddle, yes, hearth and pipe smoke, stew and hot bread, but the pipes. From Caledonian heights to lake shores in mists and fog, to a morning where soldiers wait beyond a haunted bog. Now, smart and proud atop a stage, honoring their northern roots above the mud where once they'd worn it with the blood of ancestral defiance. All right, just two more, and then we'll get back to the open reading. And this is from Ophelia's Offspring. And I had mentioned Baudelaire's birthday being April 9th. And this is not about me, people have asked me about this. Baudelaire's beneficiary. I was born in Aries and died in Virgo, just like Baudelaire. I am not 46, nor do I have syphilis, but I died in Virgo 3 times. None were black, all were white. None were green, all were right. At that time, the